The Awakening, the Revised Edition, by Lilac Moon. Chapter 3, Manipulations of the Sith. 3 months since the destruction of the Malevolence. Senator Padme Amidala watched with little interest as delegates from all around the galaxy toasted their drinks and chatted aimlessly. She was here, but in silent protest and in a foul mood to boot. How dare they celebrate the victories of this war while my husband is out there risking his life? She thought bitterly to herself. It had been 6 months since her secret marriage to Anakin, and 3 months since she had last seen her beloved. She would watch the Hollow News every night, just for any mention of him. They were calling Anakin Skywalker the hero with no fear, a name which unsettled her to no end. He was just a mindless warrior to them, for their use and nothing more. Sometimes she felt like they didn't even treat him like a person. He was a man with needs, and he needed her as much as she needed him. She listened to the Chancellor praise her husband's heroics and Obi-Wan's negotiations tonight. She knew she should be grateful that the Chancellor thought so much of Anakin, but his praise of him unsettled her. She'd seen the way the Chancellor usually looked at her husband. It was a predatory gaze, like he was getting ready to pounce. What was even more unsettling was that she'd seen him give her a look like that tonight. She sighed heavily. Maybe she was imagining things. After all, her condition was certainly causing her emotions to go crazy. The Republic was using Anakin's heroism to glorify this war, and she did not appreciate it at all. She sipped at the sparkling cider in her glass, hoping that no one would notice that she had opted for the non-alcoholic beverage. She mindfully placed a hand gently on her still flat stomach, knowing that it would begin to swell very soon. She knew that she and Anakin would someday have children, but she had not expected it to be so soon. She also knew that she and Anakin had a lot of things to figure out when he finally was allowed to come home, back to Coruscant. Still, she couldn't help but feel giddy at the thought of carrying Anakin's baby. Dorme had told her this morning that she was glowing with the radiance of an expectant mother. But tonight, that glow of Padme Skywalker was carefully hidden behind the mask of Senator Padme Amidala. Conversations wafted around her, and one suddenly caught her interest. Chancellor Palpatine mentioned that our latest victory would not be possible without Jedi Skywalker. One female senator mentioned to a few others she was standing with. Yes, Jedi Skywalker is something, Senator Kyla Manara of Bisben said. She was a beautiful woman, but about 10 years Padme's senior. She had long dark hair and a sophisticated air about her. She had a known reputation as being a man-eater, and Padme had little time for the woman's ways, including her loyalist views supporting the war and Palpatine. It really is too bad about that silly Jedi code. I'd die to see what's under all those Jedi robes, she mused to the other women, who laughed and nodded in agreement. Padme fumed. Like he would even give you the time of day, you witch, said Padme silently. She cringed when she heard the woman call her name. Senator Amidala, how lovely to see you again, Kyla said. Padme put on her best fake smile. It's lovely to see you too, Senator Manara. Padme replied, Padme, I was really hoping I'd run into you tonight, Senator Rush Clovis said as he approached. Senator Clovis, such a pleasure to see you, Kyla said as she raised her hand. Clovis politely kissed the back of it, without taking his eyes off of Padme. Padme couldn't believe her bad luck tonight. Running into her ex-boyfriend that had taken their breakup badly was the last thing she needed. Rush raised her hand to his lips and kissed the back of it, and his lips lingered too long, so she quickly snatched it away. As always, Padme, you are a vision of beauty and grace, said Rush smoothly. That's kind of you to say. Now, if you'll all excuse me, I'll be taking my leave, Padme replied. Rush put his hand on her arm. You shouldn't go alone. I would be honoured if you would allow me to escort you home, he said smoothly. No, thank you, she replied. Padme, we dated for 6 months, and I showered you with gifts and affection. I adored you, and I still do. Yet you give me no explanation of why you abruptly ended our relationship, said Russ. I am a woman that has created her own wealth, and I am not impressed by material things. If you knew me at all, you would know that. and your affections were already misplaced. I know that your ultimate desire was to worm your way into my bed. You adored the attention the other male senators gave us, when you let them think you were taking me to bed. But you never adored me as a person. You don't even know the real me, Padme replied sternly. You never let me know the real you, Rush defended himself, because you were always too busy trying to romance me into bed. You pressured me almost from day one, Padme responded. It's only because I was so overwhelmed by your beauty. I still am. I am sorry you ever felt pressured. Are you sure you won't give our relationship a second chance? He asked. There is never any hope of us having a relationship that is anything other than professional. Ever. Padme replied coldly. She knew she was a little harsh, but she simply wished she could scream that she was a happily married woman at him. She had fulfilled her commitment by showing up, and now all she wanted to do was to go home. Unfortunately, before Rush could stand in her way any longer, Padme saw Bail and Breya wave her over and smiled in relief. Now, if you will excuse me, I just remembered that I need to speak to Senator Organa about an upcoming meeting we have, Padme said as she politely excused herself. Thank you both, she said as she reached them. Breya smiled and Bail chuckled. You're welcome, Padme. You seem a little stressed tonight. Are you all right? Bail asked in concern. She so wished that she could tell her dear friends about her wonderful news. But she knew it was too risky, even though she trusted them both implicitly. I'm fine. I'm just not at all happy to be here, she replied. That certainly wasn't a lie. Yes, it is a little silly for the Chancellor to throw a gala during a war. There's hardly anything to celebrate, Breya replied. Bail nodded. You both have no idea. Oh, Annie, I miss you so much. I hope you're all right. I don't know what I'd do if I lost you, Padme cried to herself. She knew that she let the facade of Senator Amidala was fading fast, and she needed to leave. She couldn't very well become a weeping mess in front of her fellow delegates. Padme, are you all right? Bail asked again. I'm fine. I'm just tired. I think it's time for me to go home, she said, as she spotted Captain Typho at the entrance. Then we bid you good night, my lady, said Bail. Yes, get some rest. Perhaps we can share a midday meal before I return to Alderaan, Bail suggested. Padme nodded with a smile. I'd like that. Good evening to you both, she replied as she headed towards the entrance, where Gregor Typho, her chief of security, and one of the few that knew about her relationship with Anakin, waited to escort her to her speeder. Padme arrived home to her quiet apartment sometime later, sighing in exhaustion. Dealing with some of her fellow delegates was tiring at times, especially ones like Clovis that didn't want to take a hint that she wasn't interested in anything romantic with him. She only wished she could tell him that she was happily married to a man who was more amazing, and that he was even half the man that Anakin was. She wished she could rub it in Senator Minara's face too, letting her know that she didn't have a chance in Sith hell with Anakin. Padme entered her bedroom, the one that felt so empty without her beloved, and quickly undid the headdress that was containing her beautiful hair, letting it tumble down her shoulders in soft ringlets. She'd had expected to be greeted by 3PO, but it seemed that the droid had already shut himself down for the evening, as he stood in the corner, his eyes dark. Padme thought that it was a little bit odd, as 3PO usually waited for her to get home, to see if she needed anything before shutting down. But Padme didn't think much of it. She went into the fresher and came out a little later wearing a long sky blue nightgown. She sat at her dressing table and began to brush out her long curls. She smiled and clutched at the Japor snippet around her neck. It was by far her most valuable piece of jewellery, and not valuable because it was worth a lot of credits, but valuable because of who had given it to her. Suddenly, an eerie feeling caused the hairs on the back of her neck to stand up on end. She turned around to look behind her, but when she found nothing, she turned back to the mirror. That's when her terrified scream pierced the air, as there was a man standing right behind her, his reflection showing in her mirror. She turned and tried to scream as she saw a tall figure looming over her, but this person, being a master in the dark side of the Force, silenced any more sound that would come for her. That she tried to make. Good evening, Senator, Count Dooku said in a regal voice. Padme tried to fight him, but the Count grabbed her wrists and shoved them into the wall as he shackled her and gagged her. "Don't worry, dear Senator. I promise. You will remember none of this when we are done with you," Dooku said as he marched her out towards the veranda where a ship was waiting. Tears streamed down Padme's cheeks as he roughly shoved her inside. "Come now, my dear. Don't cry. My master and I will take good care of you. And your baby," Dooku said. Padme's eyes widened in disbelief. "How does he know? No one but Dorme and Typho know. Not even Annie knows yet. Oh, Anakin!" She cried silently. "My master and I have our ways of knowing things, my good Senator. I can assure you that we also know who the father of your baby is as well. My. What would the Jedi think of you if they knew you had seduced their prized chosen one away from their inane code?" Dooku questioned, his voice laced with malicious sarcasm as his ship took off. Anakin woke up with a start. He had been dozing in the makeshift tent he and his Padawan had built. They were in the Dantooine jungle, and today he had led their troops into battle with a separatist droid army that had attempted to seize Dantooine, which was a neutral but vital planet in the war, due to the abundance of natural resources. They had set up camp for the night and would hopefully be returning to Coruscant in the morning for reassignment. He turned back to the feeling that had snapped him from his sleep. He didn't know what it was, but he sensed uneasiness in the Force. He took a deep breath as his thoughts drifted to his beautiful wife. He missed her so much, but with any luck he would see her soon. His former master interrupted his thoughts as he peeked his head inside the tent, being careful not to wake Ahsoka. "Anakin," Obi-Wan whispered, gaining his attention. "Hello, Master," Anakin replied. "Where were you? I said your name 3 times before you answered." Obi-Wan replied. "Sorry, Master. I was daydreaming, I guess," Anakin replied lamely. "Well, I have good news from the Council. Our recent victories have forced the Separatists to regroup. We have been granted a 10-day leave, and we are returning to Coruscant in the morning," Obi-Wan said. Anakin wanted to shout his happiness at the top of his lungs, but instead he simply smiled. "That's wonderful," Anakin replied. Obi-Wan eyed him suspiciously, noticing the grin on his former apprentice's face. He had suspected that there was something going on between him and a certain senator, but in recent months following the Battle of Geonosis, he seemed more focused and grounded than ever. He decided that he would not intrude on Anakin's personal life unless it started to pose a problem with his training of Ahsoka or performing on the battlefield, especially since he had no more time than his suspicions to go on. The 2 Jedi turned in for the evening, both more than ready to return to Coruscant. Darth Sidious entered the medical ward, located deep in the bowels underneath the Senate Rotunda. "Is she sedated?" Darth Sidious asked his apprentice from under his cowl. "Yes, my master. The physician has also administered the drug that will erase her short-term memory, so she will not remember being abducted. The healer has also informed me that the child is a male," Darth Tyrannus replied. "Good, Lord Tyrannus. You have done well. See that the embryo is delivered to Kamino. Then return Senator Amidala to her apartment. She will believe she has simply miscarried. And then kill the healer. There must be no account of this event," Sidious said. "It will be done, my master," Lord Tyrannus replied. Sidious slipped into the hall shadows as the healer entered the room with his tools. "Healer Roland, shall we begin?" Dooku said. "Yes, sir. I have the equipment already," the healer said as he stared down at the beautiful woman that lay on the table. He felt a twinge of regret for what he was about to do, but he had been paid a lot of credits and could not allow his conscience to get the better of him. Besides, she wouldn't remember a thing. The healer picked up the scalpel and began with the procedure. About an hour later, the healer sealed the incision, and then with a special tool he raised any sign of the scar left behind. He had placed the small 8-week-old embryo in a special chamber, which was filled with a solution that replicated amniotic fluid. I think I got that right. The chamber was attached to a small machine that perfectly simulated the functions of a human female's womb. "This device will keep the embryo alive while you deliver it to Kamino," Healer Roland said. "Excellent. What of the senator? Are you positive that she will not remember anything? Duke answered. Quite positive, sir. I've injected a drug into her system that will erase her short-term memory. She will remember attending the gala this evening and then going home and retiring. She will probably sleep for approximately 24 hours before she awakes. Then, when she does, the second drug will go into effect. It is designed to simulate the cramping and bleeding of a miscarriage. She will simply think that she has lost the baby, the healer said. You have done excellent work, my friend. But I am afraid that the nature of this information is entirely too sensitive to ever surface. At least, until we are ready for it, Dooku said, as he ignited his crimson saber. Healer Roland barely had the time to scream before the lightsaber plunged through his heart. Sidious cackled evilly. You have done well, Lord Tyrannus. Please see that the embryo is delivered to Camino personally. You will remain there to oversee the progress until further notice. Advise them that I want results as soon as possible, Sidious said. With that, Count Dooku delivered Padme back to her apartment in the pre-dawn light. According to the healer, she would sleep until the next morning, came around, and then experience her miscarriage. There were no Senate sessions for the next few days, so no one would notice her absence for a day, and he had sent a message to her handmaidens and security officer from her datapad, dismissing them for the day. He placed the senator in her bed and quickly left without a sound. 24 hours. Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka arrived on Coruscant from the outer rim the next morning. Right away, they left the landing platform for the council chambers for a debriefing. Obi-Wan and Anakin entered the chamber and bowed respectfully. Greetings, Master Kenobi, Knight Skywalker. Good to see that you are both well, Yoda said. Thank you, Master. They both replied. We have asked you here today to congratulate you on the victories the Republic owes you. As you know, however, this war is far from over. Our numbers are growing thin, sadly. We feel that all our Jedi must take a 10-day meditation retreat, because it is vital to your mental health during this grueling war. You may choose where to take your leave, and there is no need for you to inform anyone if you do not wish to do so. You will then return here in 10 days. Ahsoka will remain at the temple to complete her own meditative retreat until under the healer's careful watch. It is important to make sure Padawans maintain mental stability as well. And he said, Thank you, Masters. Anakin and Obi-Wan said, bowing humbly. As they exited the chamber, Ahsoka fell into step with her master. She had watched the exchange from outside the chamber on the holoscreen. Why do I have to spend my leave in the temple? Ahsoka complained. It's not our place to question the council. Anakin replied. Ahsoka glanced at him strangely. Since when? She said. Once in a while I happen to agree with them, and this is one of those times. Besides, you'll have more fun here, catching up with the other Padawans anyway, Snips. He said. I don't fit in with the other Padawans. They all look at me differently because I'm the Padawan of the legendary Chosen One, General Skywalker, she replied with an eye roll. They're just a little intimidated by you, especially the ones who haven't been let out into the fray of the battle. And do you know how I feel about that title? I'm a person, just like anyone else. I've made my share of mistakes, and I've learnt through no amount of ease that if I strive to be perfect, then I will always come up short. Anakin replied. That's not a very Jedi-like thing to say, Ahsoka said. He smirked. Maybe not, but sometimes things aren't always as black and white as the Jedi paint them. There's a lot of grey out there, Snips. I had trouble fitting in with the other Padawans too. But don't let them get you down. Just be yourself, Anakin replied. If you say so. Where are you going for your retreat? She said. Oh, I don't know. Somewhere where it's really beautiful, with lots of nature. A place where the Force is so strong, it's nearly tangible. Anakin replied. Like Verikino. He added silently. I didn't know such a place existed, Ahsoka replied. He smirked. Oh, it does. Behave yourself while I'm gone, Anakin said, waving to her as they reached the landing pad. No promises, and that goes double for you, Master, she replied. He smiled. No promises, Snips, he replied as he hopped into his open cockpit speeder. He sped into traffic and headed for 500 Republica. He couldn't wait to surprise Padme. Back on the landing platform, Ahsoka pondered where her master was going. And she immediately knew the answer. Naboo, she thought silently. Padme stretched her arms over her head and got out of bed. She yawned deeply and put her hand to her aching stomach. She still hadn't gotten used to the morning sickness and started to head for the fresher. Suddenly she stopped, as a sharp pain coursed through her abdomen. Ah! She called out, hoping the pain meant nothing. But the cramping did not subside and only grew worse. She instantly knew that something was terribly wrong. She ran into the fresher quickly, as blood trickled down her thighs. Anakin arrived at the 500 Republica and parked his speeder in the garage. Concealing his presence in the Force from those around him, he made his way up to the top floor where Padme's apartment was. He was careful to make sure that anyone who did see him would not remember seeing him at all. Anakin used his access card that Padme had given him and entered her large apartment. "Padme!" called out in the quiet apartment, his voice filled with anticipation. There was no answer, and Anakin crept into the living room. It was still quiet, and he realized it was still a little early. Maybe she's still asleep, Anakin said to himself as R2 rolled in behind him, and whistled. Anakin turned 3PO on and the droid came to life. "Oh, Master Annie! How wonderful! Miss Padme will be so happy you're home." 3PO greeted. Anakin grinned, but then it quickly faded as he heard a faint sobbing. "Padme!" he called as he headed for their bedroom. He ran to the fresher and found his beautiful wife sobbing uncontrollably on the floor of the fresher, with blood covering her legs and the floor. "Padme!" Anakin cried as he fell to his knees beside her, immediately taking her into his arms. "Oh, Annie!" She sobbed. "Padme, what happened? You are?" Anakin said. "I'm so sorry, Annie. I'm so sorry." She sobbed as he held her. "For what, Angel?" he asked as she looked up at him with watery brown eyes. "I was pregnant, and I was going to tell you as soon as you returned. I was so excited. But now I think I miscarried. I think I just lost our baby." She sobbed. Anakin wrapped her in his strong embrace and stroked her long chestnut curls. "Oh, Padme, I'm so sorry you had to go through all this alone. But losing our baby is not your fault," he said as he cupped her tear-drenched cheek. "This won't be our only conception. We'll conceive another baby, and we'll raise a beautiful family together someday. I won't let you beat yourself up about this. Unfortunately, this one just wasn't meant to be," he told her. "And I found out I was pregnant. I was so worried at first about what it would mean. But then I kept thinking about all those things that it would mean. I knew that you would be so happy too, and I couldn't wait to tell you until I got a chance to. But our little one never got that chance." Padme sobbed as she buried her face into his chest, soaking his tunic with tears. "I've missed you so much," she sobbed. "I've missed you too, Padme. More than you know. But I have good news," he said as she looked up at him as he smiled down at her. "I have 10 days of leave," he told her. This brought a smile to her face. 10 days? Oh, honey, that's perfect." "The Senate is in recess too," she replied. 10 days just for us, Angel. Just for us. What do you say I help you get cleaned up, and I'll have 3PO pack your things, and we can leave for Naboo?" he asked. "I would love that," she replied as she hugged him tightly. She combed her fingers through into his lengthening hair and the back of his neck, making him purr in delight. She broke the hug as Anakin helped her up and started the water. "Your hair is getting long, my love," she noticed. Anakin grinned as he felt the water temperature, and then helped her out of her nightgown. "Do you like it?" he asked. She smiled. "I do." Count Dooku's ship was in the hangar, on Camino, and Lama Su waited to greet him. "Welcome, Lord Tyrannus," he greeted. Dooku nodded in greeting. Have your technicians retrieve the embryo from my ship. Master Sidious wishes to have results as soon as possible. Dooku said, Yes, we are very excited about this challenge you have presented us. We are positive we will have success, Lama Su said. See that you do. We only have one shot at this. Stealing another embryo from Pa is not possible, as it would begin to raise suspicion, Dooku said. Lama Su nodded. I assure you, we intend to have the complete success with the Skywalker fetus, Lama Su replied, as he led Count Dooku to the laboratory, while his technicians followed behind, with the machine containing the embryo. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed this, because I certainly did. Ooh, Rush Clovis. Keep an eye on this one, people. I've read this fic before. Oh boy. And of course, they did it. They actually stole a baby from its mother's womb and then wiped her memory. Oh, poor Padme. Poor Anakin. And poor baby. Anyway, let's hope things improve. Let's hope the next chapter will be a bit nicer. If memory serves, it is. Let's have a look. Yeah. I think this is going to be fun for you guys next time. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified if I never upload a new video. Have a good day, night or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Bye!